Polls.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And we thank you for being here, Barnaby.
Okay, let's unpack this. We're really diving into your complete playbook for selling a mobile home park. And look, we know this isn't just any asset.
No, definitely not. For many owners, selling their MHP is, well, it's the result of a lifetime's work. You can't just wing it.
Exactly. So this deep dive, it's built from a pretty big stack of sources,
Yep.
all designed to put the power back where it belongs with you, the seller.
That's right. Our mission here, it's pretty straightforward. Clarity where brokers might spin things, confidence when buyers try to create doubt, and, fundamentally control over your exit.
We're talking about selling smarter, not just faster. And to do that, we've pulled together this 5-part strategy. It takes you right from the basics all the way through to advanced stuff like deal structure and negotiation psychology.
Yeah, if you're getting ready to sell, this structure is, well, it's your guide. We're moving past the generic advice. If you've ever felt like the buyer's team, their pros had all the advantages, this is about giving you the tactics, the actual knowledge to level that playing field. Become a deal architect yourself.
Okay, let's start at the beginning then. Part 1, the foundation. Getting the basics right. So how do these sophisticated buyers really look at a park? And how do we counter them from day one?
Well, the first thing a professional buyer does is look for gaps, inconsistencies, missing info. They have this classic playbook, really. It's designed to make you second-guess your park's actual documented value.
So if your paperwork's a mess.
They assume the park's operations are too. And that right there justifies a lower offer in their mind. It gives them leverage.
Okay, so the foundation isn't just about, mowing the lawn. It's about the documented facts. The key takeaway here is this 5-step roadmap to maximizing value.
Yeah.
But instead of just listing steps, let's nail down one really crucial action right now.
Absolutely. The place where serious money is often left on the table. It's proactive tenant file scrubbing. You have to go through every single tenant file, standardize everything.
What does that mean specifically? What are we looking for?
Are all the leases current? Is the rent collection documented consistently? Have you actually verified the utility billing setups? Got the paperwork clean for their lender? Doing this lets you present a completely solid, verifiable rent roll.
And that rent roll is the biggest driver of value.
It really is. That clarity just shuts down a lot of the buyer's initial doubt. It forces them to price based on confirmed income, not some assumed risk they've invented.
Right. So once we've got that operational cleanliness, that documented proof, we need to apply the same kind of rigor to the finances, which brings us nicely to part 2, strategic finance. This is where we shift thinking, right? Away from just a one-time cash payout towards maybe long-term wealth.
It's a really critical pivot. We introduce this idea that sometimes the smartest way to sell isn't to walk away completely, but actually to stay in the deal financially.
You mean seller carry?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Seller carry. It's probably the most powerful tool in MHP sales, but honestly, it's also the most misunderstood.
Yeah, I think seller carry often triggers a fear reaction. Owners hear it and just think risk. They're trading their park for an IOU. What's the real story? What are the protections?
Okay, first the benefits. Tax strategy is huge. It turns a massive, immediate capital gains hit into a steady, passive income stream over years.
Yeah.
You defer and manage the taxes. But about that risk you mentioned, the fear of default.
Yeah.
That's handled through strong legal safeguards. It's not just an IOU.
So how are we protected? Is the seller really in a secure spot?
Yes, absolutely. This isn't like an unsecured personal loan. The sale is structured using a deed of trust or a mortgage, depending on the state laws. You're essentially holding a secured note against the very park you just sold.
Oh.
If the buyer defaults, you foreclose, you take back the property. And here's the kicker. They've likely put capital into improving the park while they owned it. So you often get back an asset in better shape than when you sold it.
Huh. That completely flips the risk calculation, doesn't it?
It does. It pushes you towards designing genuinely win-win deals because your downside is protected. And speaking of finance, we have to bring in a key metric here, DSCR.
Right. Debt service coverage ratio.
Right.
Crucial.
Yeah, DSCR is what the buyer's bank uses. It measures if the park's net operating income, the NOI, is enough to cover the new mortgage payment they're taking on.
And why does the seller need to care so much about the buyer's bank metric?
Because if your NOI is low, maybe because expenses haven't been managed tightly, the buyer's DSCR calculation looks weak. If the DSCR is weak, their lender cuts back the loan amount.
Which means less debt. for the buyer.
and less cash they can offer you at closing. So understanding and frankly optimizing for DSCR is vital for getting the maximum price.
Makes sense. But, getting the math right, the foundation, the finance, that's only part of it. Every seller hits the mind game eventually. Which takes us to part 3, mastering the mind game.
Well, yeah.
Psychology. It closes more deals than spreadsheets ever will. They're really sharp buyers. They're masters of behavioral economics. They use things like fake urgency, emotional anchors, even just silence as weapons.
Okay, so we need to counter that. We identified sort of 3 arenas to master. First, the seller's mindset. How do you handle the emotional side of selling something you've poured your life into?
You have to stay objective. Separate the community feel from the transaction reality. It's tough, but necessary.
Second, decoding the buyer's playbook. Understanding what really drives their offers. It's usually about getting a discount, not just getting the park.
And third, understanding broker behavior. Brokers often control the perception of value, the pace of the deal. You need to know if their desire for a quick commission lines up with your need for top dollar. Sometimes it does, sometimes not so much.
Can you give us a concrete example? A psychological tactic buyers use.
A real classic is the anchor and adjust. The buyer knows roughly the market value, but they'll open with a deliberately, almost offensively low offer, the anchor. Then they drag out the negotiation, making these small, grudging increases. When the seller finally gets them to a certain number, they feel like they won, like they really fought for it.
Even if that final price is still actually below the real market value.
Exactly. It's manipulation. Knowing that's coming lets you control the pacing.
Yeah.
Use silence yourself.
Yeah.
Let them feel the pressure of their timeline, not yours. And through all this, you've got to manage your own team, your lawyer, accountant, any partners. Keep everyone aligned.
Yeah, that team dynamics piece is huge. Internal friction is a weakness a buyer will exploit if they see it.
It's pure defensive strategy. Absolutely.
Okay, so that prep work, that mental and foundational work, takes us right into what's often the most nerve-wracking part. Part 4, due diligence, DD, where optimism meets reality, maybe.
That's a good way to put it. Due diligence isn't just a polite walkthrough. It's an aggressive search for problems, for liabilities. Our sources are clear. DD is actually the seller's protection plan, too.
How so?
If you wait for the buyer to uncover some hidden flaw, you instantly lose leverage. You lose control of the story.
And when they do find something big, like, I don't know, an unexpected environmental issue or a private sewer system that's failing, what happens then?
That almost always leads to the retrade reality. That's just industry jargon for the buyer coming back after the price is agreed in the contract and saying, hey, based on this inspection finding, we need to drop the price.
Ugh. Mid-deal renegotiation.
Exactly. They know you're already invested emotionally and financially in the sale. It's painful.
So what are the big red flags, the common deal killers that trigger these retrades?
Usually it's major infrastructure stuff, things that signal massive future spending for the buyer. The sources point again and again to lagoons, old leach fields, private water, or sewer utilities. These things scream regulatory and financial risk to a buyer.
Okay, so the buyer finds one of these issues, tries the retrade. How does the seller fight back effectively?
You fight back with data, with preparation. We call it document discipline. It's about being preemptive. If you already have current environmental reports, recent utility maintenance logs, all your permits lined up, organized, ready to go.
You control the narrative.
Precisely. You're ahead of the truth. A buyer can't exploit an unknown if you've already documented it, maybe even budgeted for it.
That flows perfectly into part 5 then, the Advanced Sellers Masterclass. If you've done all this work, you're not just, selling a park anymore. You're engineering the exit. You're the deal architect.
Yeah, this is really the graduate level. It's blending the science of valuation with that preemptive legal and tax strategy. You need to really decode the market math. Understand how appraisals actually work, the nuances of cap rates in your specific market.
And we have to revisit DSCR again, the debt service coverage ratio, because here, at this advanced stage, it flips from being just the bank's hurdle to becoming your leverage point. Remind us how that works, focusing on the seller's control.
Okay. When you clean up your operations, manage expenses tightly, you maximize your net operating income, your NOI. Higher NOI means a better DSCR number.
Right.
A better DSCR means the buyer's lender feels safer, so they're willing to lend more money against the property. Since most MHP deals rely heavily on bank debt.
A higher loan amount means the buyer can afford to pay you a higher price.
Bingo. You essentially control the upper limit of the price by controlling the operational data that feeds into the bank's DSCR calculation. It's powerful.
That really is powerful leverage. So we're synthesizing everything here. We talk about the 4 pillars of due diligence: financial, operational, physical, legal. But the advanced seller takes it one step further by auditing their own MHP, right?
Absolutely. Thinking exactly like the most critical buyer. Doing that deep dive on your own infrastructure, your own books before they even set foot on the property. Find the problems yourself first.
And then there's the final piece, legacy planning. This isn't just about the closing day. It's about making the sale work for you long term.
Yeah, making sure the sale outlives you, financially speaking. Using tax strategies intelligently. This often means working with your advisors on things like an installment sale, which seller carry enables, or maybe a 1031 exchange, to manage those big capital gains taxes. It's about exiting smart, not just fast.
What a journey. Okay, so by mastering these 5 elements, the foundation, the finance, the psychology, the due diligence, and this advanced strategy, you really do shift. You move from being maybe an amateur seller reacting to offers to becoming a strategic deal architect who sets the terms.
You maximize value, you minimize those nasty surprises. Look, the buyers, their brokers, they've had their professional playbook for a long, long time. This is about giving you yours, giving you the tools, the insights to keep control and understand all the levers, financial and human, that make a deal successful.
So let's leave our listeners with a final thought. Since due diligence is so much about protecting yourself as the seller, about getting ahead of the truth, consider this. If you had to identify one of those common red flags, a lagoon, maybe some old leach fields or private utilities in your park right now, how would you start building the narrative? How would you use proactive reports, data, maybe even planned improvements to present that feature to a potential buyer, not as an immediate deal-killing liability, but as a known manageable aspect of the asset? That's the challenge to think about.